It's heads. So you will be Cathey first with opening statements, but then you will be first with one. Okay? Okay. All right. So I think we're waiting to see if we have our radio coverage. Is that right?
Yes. 706.
Far left.
But we will start as expected at 7 with introductions? Okay. Well, then that means that we need our introducer.
So what can you see there?
Yeah. See that?
So I
there?
wouldn't worry about going to the moderator at all. Just pretty much keep it there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I told him to go back.
I'm just going to let it stay that cool. Okay.
I'm Colleen Robson. I'm chair of the Democratic Party of Walworth County. And I just want to welcome all of you to the first debate between the Democratic candidates for Congress in the first CD. These are historic times. We're fortunate to have two great candidates who are already working to protect our common values and defend our democracy. Tonight they're here to share their plans for being our voice in Washington. We want to thank Mike Crute because tonight's debate is being broadcast on WRRD 1510 AM. And this means that we're going to have a break in the debate just before 7:30, during which we will ask you to remain seated. Fortunately, our moderator is experienced with such things and will guide us through the process. We are really excited to have Joy Cardine joining us. She was a broadcast journalist for nearly 40 years until she retired last fall. She worked for WSAW-TV in Wausau and WLUK-TV in Green Bay prior to joining Wisconsin Public Radio, where she served as news director, Ideas Network director, and for the last 15 years, host of the Joy Cardine Show. Since retirement, she has been active in public affairs, including voter education activities as a member of the League of Women Voters. Now, more than ever, we must be engaged, so I want to thank each of you for being here. Please give Joy and our candidates a warm welcome.
So we're not going to begin formally until 7:06 to accommodate our radio coverage, but I will talk a little bit about some etiquette. How about that? So we have selected how to do the opening statements with the coin toss. We have selected the seating arrangement based on the audience being in thirds here. We have Randy Bryce's people over on my left. We have the Cathey Myers people over on my right. And everybody in the middle is apparently neutral or undecided. Is that right? I will ask during the debate that the audience should be civil and respectful and make sure that we can hear the candidates answering questions and addressing the issues. Please don't respond to every single answer that a candidate gives with extended applause or otherwise, because that's just going to take away time from the candidates answering the questions. You can certainly, show your approval politely, but let's not have extended cheering or booing or anything else during the debate. Please silence your phones if you haven't done that already, since we don't want to have it disrupted. We will be, as mentioned, live on radio, and there's also a feed on the internet, a Facebook Live going on. So we don't want the phones ringing or dinging and that sort of thing. So if you haven't already, you may, I don't know if you will have time or not. We have about 3 minutes before we start. At 7:06? Okay. Well, I take direction. So, yeah, all right. That's what we're planning on was 7:06 to start. So, if you haven't already, we have there was a paper and a box in the lobby where you could submit a question. We have this many questions, so we do have quite a few. We probably won't have time for all of the questions, so we have some volunteers who are going through them to make sure they're not repetitive or questions that are directed at an individual candidate. We want questions that both candidates can answer. So those questions will be submitted to me during a break that was alluded to at about 7:30, again to accommodate our radio broadcast. And I will start putting audience questions in with the questions that I already have. The questions were written and selected by the Democratic Party of Walworth County, who organized the debate. So we will be asking all of those questions, I hope, and I will save the particulars in terms of timing for when we start the broadcast in a couple of minutes. So maybe I should just let the candidates gather their thoughts, let the audience gather their thoughts, and we will get started in about a minute or so. Okay, so we're going to be going pretty soon. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be seeing my cue, though. That's the... I'm not, because I just see bright lights right now. I need someone to wave who's going to be cueing me. Okay.
Afterwards, just grab something. I'll be able to compile.
I'm used to doing this in a studio and being in control.
I can cut it if there isn't anybody that is already started. Yeah. Dennis, I don't think there is.
I do know how to talk to time, but this is a little different.
Oh, sweet.
And welcome to
That's
Okay.
a debate. Joy Cardini, moderator, the candidates Randy Meyer and Cathey Meyer and Randy Bryce. Right now, we will go to Joy Cardini live at Badger High School in Lake Geneva.
Good evening and welcome. Here we go. I'm Joy Cardine. Thank you for joining us this evening here in the audience at the Badger High School in Lake Geneva, or via the airwaves on the radio, or via the internet. Thank you to the Democratic Party of Walworth County for organizing the debate. The questions that I will pose to the candidates were selected and written by the debate organizers. I may pose a follow-up or two for clarity. We will also present the candidates with questions from the audience throughout the debate. We won't have time for all questions, so repetitive questions or questions that are directed at an individual candidate will not be asked. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, 1 minute for a follow-up. A timekeeper will let them know when time is up. If they keep talking, I will let them know when time is up, and we will move on. I will ask the audience again to not respond to each answer that the candidates give with extended applause or otherwise, because that will take time away from the debate. The candidates will have 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks. The order was determined by a coin toss. So with all that being said, we have with us the 2 Democratic candidates who want to be your next member of Congress. Randy Bryce is a U.S. Army veteran, cancer survivor, and union iron worker. Cathey Myers is a single mother of 2, a 24-year public high school teacher, and a member of the Janesville School Board. Cathey will go first with her opening statement, and again, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Joy, and thank you to the Walworth County Dems for putting together this important debate. I guess I know why you're here. It's because this is probably the most important election that we've had in a long time. Because this is the first opportunity in 20 years to take back this seat. You have the incredible opportunity to do this, and I'm the candidate that can do it. You have a big decision on August 14th. We're not going to hold Trump accountable with viral tweets and poll-tested one-liners. What we need to do is to take back the House. And this is the seat that is likely going to do that. We need to make sure that we elect someone that is not only going to be able to win, but also be able to serve. And to also bring back all those people who failed to vote in 2016, who didn't feel as though they had something to vote for. I'm an elected official. I have served my community for 5 years now. I have analyzed budgets. I have built coalitions. I have brought about reforms that were unheard of 5 years earlier. I'm also a teacher and a single mom. And I know what it means to have to sit down at the kitchen table and to make ends meet. I am running because I want to help Wisconsin families put food on the table. I want to make sure they have health care, a quality education, and that we leave an environment where wages are such that you can live comfortably and pursue your dreams. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I humbly ask for your vote on August 14th. Thank you.
Now, the opening statement from Randy Bryce.
Well, thank you, Joy, and the Walworth Democrats for doing this. Thank you, Cathey, as well, for being here. I'm running for Congress because working people in southeastern Wisconsin are getting a raw deal. We know they're getting a raw deal because we see it every day. When our neighbors have to work multiple jobs to support their families. When our kids ask if they'll be able to afford a college education. Or when parents lose sleep over the cost of their medical bills and prescriptions that they need to stay healthy. The average member of Congress is a millionaire. They don't know what it means to be a working person in Wisconsin today. But I do, because I am. I went to public schools here. After I got out of the Army, I worked with homeless veterans here. I became an iron worker and joined a union here. I beat cancer here. I'm proud to be raising my son here. And I want to take the values that I learned here to Washington, D.C. I'll fight to protect our good-paying jobs and make sure that all workers earn a living wage. I'll fight to make healthcare a right and not a privilege. And I'll fight to strengthen our schools and make college affordable. I'm not a career politician, so I'm not going to be speaking in sound bites tonight. That's just not who I am. I'll be listening to the people of Wisconsin. I'm not going to give you the most polished answer either, but I can tell you that I won't answer to the billionaires and special interests that have controlled our Congress for far too long. I will stand up for the interests of Wisconsin's working people and fight every day for a system that works for all of us.
We are going to be alternating the questions with which candidate starts first, but we will present the first question to Cathey Myers. Both will answer, of course. President Trump and the Republican Congress passed a tax cut bill last December. It was voted along partisan lines with the impact on individual citizens, corporations, and the federal deficit not totally understood. But that has become clearer over the past 6 months. What do you feel will be the impact of this tax cut bill in your congressional district, and what changes to the bill, if any, would you recommend if elected?
Thank you. Yeah, the tax bill that Paul Ryan passed last year that was approved upon partisan lines is devastating. Goes totally opposite of what they say that they want to do when they talk about responsible and fiscal management. It is going to have a tremendous impact on us here in Wisconsin. It's going to add to the deficit. The budget deficit is already at $20 trillion, and it's going to add another $1 trillion at least every year. And we're going to end up paying for this. Frankly, I would love to repeal that. I think that it's absolutely necessary that we do that. It means that we're not going to be able to invest in education. We're not going to be able to invest in infrastructure like we want to because we're going to be paying this debt. And it means that it's going to harm all of us.
Randy?
But let's call it what it is. It's a tax scam. And we've seen, $1.5 trillion to people that don't need $1.5 trillion. Now we're being told that after giving this away to the richest people, that we can't afford Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Nothing could be further from American values and taken off of working people than something like this. What we've seen from the years of Ronald Reagan when he first tried this trickle-down experiment. It's a failed experiment. It doesn't work. We've seen the income inequality, especially in the state of Wisconsin, where the middle class is disappearing faster than in any other state in the entire country, right here, as a result of this trickle-down experiment. For a party that says that they're going to be fiscally responsible, they're showing us that they just don't care. And this is what happens when you're going to reward your donor base. That's all that this is. And this is something, as was stated, it's partisan, very partisan. We know which party is looking out for working people, and we know which one is working out for the greedy corporations. There's no excuse for something like this, and we need to get back to a fair tax where people that work hard for a living, where we finally have enough to show for what we work for.
Next question, Randy starts. Healthcare coverage for Americans has eroded under President Trump and the GOP-led Congress. Not only has the Affordable Care Act been weakened, but proposed changes to Medicaid and Medicare are under review as well. What's your position on healthcare, and how would you use your elected position to represent your constituency?
One of the first things I'm looking forward to doing when I get sworn into Congress is signing on, co-sponsoring, or writing a Medicare for All bill. Yeah. Healthcare is very special reason why I got into this race. I was diagnosed with cancer at a time when I didn't have any insurance. The only thing that's scarier for me to be diagnosed with cancer when I don't have health insurance is for something that would happen to my son without having health insurance. It affects my mom. My mom has MS. She has to take 20 different medications every month. My father has Alzheimer's. He's in assisted living. These are things that affect every one of us. It's intergenerational, and what good is healthcare if you can't afford to use it? It's something that is near and dear to everybody, and you can't tell me, just hearing stories about people going to the pharmacy, and one woman, about a month and a half ago, talking to the pharmacist. She needs 10 medications. Asking the pharmacist, which 3 can I take? I can only afford 3. Which 3 are most important to me? I have a cousin that sent me go get them. No, she's not going to be around with us next year because she can't afford to live. Think about that for a minute. We have people in this country now that are planning to die because they can't afford to live. That's unacceptable in my book. This is the wealthiest country in the world. And the fact that we choose not to take care of our own people is absolutely mind-blowing for me. We can choose. We can take care of everybody. And we need to show everybody that you're all worthy of being able to go see a doctor.
Thank you. I believe that healthcare is a human right. And therefore, yeah, it is. It simply is. And that's why I too support Medicare for All, and I also think that we should be expanding Badger Care in this state as quickly as possible. I have pre-existing conditions. I imagine most of you have pre-existing conditions. I have been in a situation where I have been denied medical procedures and, and treatment because somebody in an insurance company decided that I didn't need it, decided to overrule my doctor. We need to make sure that it is the doctor making the decision and that everybody has access and can go to the doctor of their choice. The employer-based healthcare system not only is ineffective and inefficient, but it stifles small businesses. We need to make it possible for small businesses to grow. It stifles entrepreneurship. My son, who is in the audience here, has thought about putting on his own shingle at some point, but what keeps him from doing that is the thought of having to handle his own health insurance and how cost prohibitive it is. On the Janesville School Board, I've worked incredibly hard to protect health care benefits, to make sure that we keep teachers in the classroom. But if we remove those things, we'd be able to invest in our employees and invest in our products. The for-profit system in healthcare does not work. We need to get rid of it and support Medicare.
Next question is, investment in our communities at both the state and federal level is of course important. That investment includes our roads and infrastructure, our schools, and providing better paying jobs. This is a broad question, but what recommendations do you have for these investments at both the state and federal levels, and how would you fund your recommendations? And Cathey starts.
So you're right. I mean, the roads are crumbling here, and and we have not invested in our infrastructure or in jobs. And you're right. It is a broad question. That $1.5 trillion tax plan that went to the very wealthy is one of the things that gets in the way of us being able to invest in those things. One of my community leaders once told me that budgets are about priorities. And we need to make sure that we are investing in our infrastructure and in the people in this community and in this country instead of giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. So there are ways that we can bring back jobs, and I've actually proposed a jobs plan, and it's back on the table out in the hallway that is really quite detailed. But one of the things it includes is making sure that we invest in clean energy jobs like a stimulus. And that means investing in infrastructure and manufacturing. That means that we are investing in things like high-speed rail. Frankly, clean energy is the next sector. It's the fastest growing sector. And not only would we be able to have excellent paying jobs, and they should be union jobs. They should be but we would also clean up our environment, we would live healthier, we would save our kids from having severe health problems. One other thing that we could add to that is we could make sure that we invest and help homeowners replace the service lines that bring water to their homes that are oftentimes made of lead. That would not only provide great paying jobs, but it would also make sure that we stop poisoning our kids.
I've spent the last 20 years of my life working on our infrastructure. Since I've been running for office, you might have noticed a little more Scott holes than usual driving here tonight. I know we ran across quite a few. That's how we got out of the last depression, was building our infrastructure. This is about 50 to 75 years ago was when these projects were built. Every one of these projects has a lifespan. The lifespan is about 50 to 75 years. I don't know how much more needs to be said. Do we need another bridge to collapse in Minnesota before we can invest in our own infrastructure? And don't get me wrong, the type of infrastructure projects that I'm talking about are not the privatized version that Donald Trump wants to bring out. The kind where we use our own money to fix the roads and then we sell it to a private entity who's going to rent it back to us. That's not going to get us anywhere. Rebuilding our roads is, with the building trades that I've been a member of for the past 20 years, it's one of the best kept secrets. We take somebody in off the street. It's a 4-year program for the ironworkers. When you're done, no tax money is used. When you're done, you don't have any college loans to repay. Great paying jobs. Not only that, but we're looking at green energy jobs coming up too. And when we're talking about that, it's things that the building trades need to grasp now. Because if we don't, if these jobs aren't grasped and they aren't claimed by the unions, we're going to be sitting scratching our heads when we watch somebody else do this kind of work. There's plenty of work. There's plenty of people that need jobs. This is a fantastic way to get our country back literally on the road, to include high-speed rail, electric, internet cable, which is, I lose signals coming out through here too. It's not just roads and bridges. It's a lot of other things that are involved, and all of it are great paying jobs. We need to make people that benefit the most from it, that profit the most, pay their fair share. That's how we get it done.
Immigrant labor has been important to Wisconsin in agriculture, services, and other parts of the economy. The current climate on the immigration issue is divisive and in particular has left the dreamers in a very unfortunate situation. What is your position on immigration and its role not only in Wisconsin but nationally? And specifically, how do you see Congress getting to a resolution on DACA? Randy.
Right now I find it extremely unconscionable what's going on at our southern border. If you're not standing up and screaming bloody murder at the fact that kids are being ripped apart from their parents and some will never see each other again, you don't get to claim family values. One of the first steps to get that done is to abolish ICE. They all live in There's no way that President Trump should keep a deportation force. Right now we have more ICE agents than we do FBI agents. Wrong way to go. Immigration is one of the reasons why I first got into this race. The day after Donald Trump was elected, I got a phone call from Voces de la Frontera, who I'm proud to have their endorsement with as well. Yeah. And they were terrified. They said, Randy, can you come talk to our members? Can you help get more people to attend our meetings? So I got veterans, I got labor, the Racine Labor Council got involved. We wrote a paper up saying that we're going to stand with the immigrant community and include them with us when we make decisions, because we're stronger when we're more united. But I'll never forget attending those meetings and hearing particularly 2 young ladies talk about what their day consisted of. One of them was a high school student. She was terrified that an ICE agent might come drag her out of her classroom and send her to some detention facility. If she did make it through the day, then she was worried about getting home to her dad, because he was undocumented, finding that their door had been kicked in and he had been ripped away. That's not the America that I put on a uniform in service of. We're all immigrants, most of us. And we need to do that. We need to find not just a Clean Dream Act to help the students who are here, but we also need to get a DAPA resolution passed as well, which is going to protect their parents. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, what's happening at the border is inhumane. It is unconscionable. It is cruel. And it was a choice by Donald Trump. And it lets you know, not only can he not just create a policy, but there always has to be sort of this twist, this element of cruelty that is infused in it. I think that what they are doing down there is absolutely heinous and should be stopped immediately. I am incredibly concerned about the fact that they don't seem to have a process to restore those families and to reunite those kids with their parents. On top of that, I support a Clean Dream Act. We need to make sure that we protect our dreamers and that we provide an avenue, a pathway to citizenship for their parents, who have been remarkable members of our communities. They have worked in our communities. They and their kids have gone to school here. They serve in our military. They are parts of our community. They are our neighbors, and we need to treat them as such. ICE is made up of a lot of thugs. It really is. And it is out of control. And I'm interested to hear your position on that, because a while ago, and apparently you flipped on that, Mr. Bryce, because a while ago you supported the idea of ICE and local law enforcement being used to do the work of ICE. I think that ICE needs to be put under the purview of the Justice Department, where it will have regulation and oversight. It's not an old agency, it's only 15 years old, and we can do that.
Follow up on the immigration question when we come back from a break. We need to take this short break from the debate to accommodate our live radio coverage. During the break, we ask that the audience here on site remain seated unless it's an emergency, of course. We will resume the debate in a few minutes. We may come back with some audience questions as well, I hope to, but we'll follow up on the immigration issue since that came up in the last response. I'm Joy Cardine. This is the Democratic Party of Walworth County's primary debate with the two Democratic candidates running in Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District, Cathey Myers and Randy Bryce.
Thank you folks for coming up today. Appreciate our guests, Cathey and Randy, for a spirited debate. We are blessed that we have two excellent candidates to get behind in November. We're very fortunate for that. Infinitely better representation than what we've had for the last 2 decades. My name is Scott Cashin. I'm Vice Chair of the Walworth County Democrats. I want to invite everybody here who is not a Walworth County Party member or in your local county, get involved. Join your local Democratic Party. You know, we are all waiting for the unicorn candidate, the unicorn party, and looking for someone that we can agree with 100% of the time. But, you know, we're losing elections waiting for that. We need to get together, work together, step out of the box that we've been in and join the party, participate, maybe do something we haven't done before in the past, knock on a door, make a phone call, talk to your neighbors about the next election. I'd also like to invite all of you, July 29th. We are having an open house. We have the same address in Walworth County, in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, but just a new spot. And we're having an open house July 29th from 12 to 3. You can check us out on Facebook and also on our webpage. And right now, as we sit here talking about jobs, our economy, immigration, how we're going to pay for health care, and some of you guys might be just taking a break from thinking about that with your family today. The Republicans are on Lake Geneva right now, usually with their $5,000 to $10,000 per person on the boat, raising money. They get to do it $1 million at a time, $500,000 at a time. We would be very appreciative if you guys would consider, maybe not 10,000, but $1 to $2. Support the fine Badger High School venue and the great students that are helping put this event together for us. We'd appreciate it very much. Hope you're enjoying the debate, and take a few minutes and we'll turn it back over to Joy when she's ready to go.
Democratic candidates running in Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District. We will now resume our questions for Cathey Myers and Randy Bryce. Since there was a reference to ICE in our last set of answers, we did have a second question regarding families belong together becoming a rallying cry against the zero tolerance policies of the Trump administration. Starting with Randy, what is your position on this moral question? And what should Congress be doing to ensure our immigration policies reflect American values? And specifically, did you change your position on ICE?
Well, with regard to that, I had made a statement a while ago that I feel that local law enforcement should be given all the tools that they need. My father's a retired cop, not to do extra work. When it comes to deportation, that's something, you hear Donald Trump talk about MS-13. That's a criminal issue right there. The people that are coming here trying to better their lives should not be treated the same as the criminals that are taken into custody by local law enforcement. What we need to do is do anything possible to keep families together as well. Because I can't, for the life of me, believe that people are allowing, somebody going home that's working on the border to their children after spending the whole day making their living, keeping the roof over their head, by separating people. And now we find that these numbers are increasing more and more. And that people, they're sending children throughout the country. Pilots are standing up and they're saying, look, you're not going to do this on my plate. But then we see them try to lie and say, look, these aren't detainees, this is a soccer team. That's what's going on in the United States right now. And when it comes to immigration and what we should do in Congress, I'm very thankful to have the support of the Latino Caucus, Dolores Huerta, Voces de la Frontera, and the Latino Victory Fund, who all stand strong with us and know exactly how I feel about immigration, and everybody deserves a legal and quick pathway to documentation in this country. This country is built on immigration. And if that's not the case, then let's melt down the Statue of Liberty, and you can try to use that for a while. If that's where the country seems to be going, and I'm not going to have any of that. That's not my United States of America.
Thank you. And that's not my United States of America either. This is a diverse country. Our strength comes from our diversity. We need immigration. We need more immigration. And we need to be working with people who are here seeking asylum and stop treating them like criminals. There are ways to do that. There are ways to do that. Well, first of all, one of the things we could do is make sure that everybody gets a chance at due process. When you come here as an asylum seeker, we need to make sure that we have people in place, judges in place to make that determination. We also need to fight back against changes in the immigration policy that make it impossible for women who are escaping domestic violence in their country from coming to this country simply seeking safety and shelter and a new life where they can raise their kids. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the State Department is woefully understaffed. And it's because, I really believe it is because it is not a priority. It doesn't help if we have a functioning State Department. It doesn't help Donald Trump's agenda. It's harder to demonize people when we're working with them. As a matter of fact, a lot of the countries that don't have ambassadors are in Central America. We need to make sure we establish our presence in those places, that we offer people due process, that we have people available to process claims, and that we stop treating people who would do exactly what we would do in making sure that we have a safe place to live and to grow and to raise our families. Stop turning them into criminals.
It looks like we have a request for a follow-up of 1 minute, Randy.
Okay. I'd just like to point out that people risking their lives to come here in order to achieve the American dream, they're not the problem. The problem in this country is the fact that those of us that are even born here have too much issues trying to achieve the American dream. It's not people coming here trying to get what we have. The fact is that it's corporate greed, and people would treat everybody as unequally and take and exploit all of us, if not for unions, and we're just going the wrong direction.
you need a minute for any more?
No, I mean, I can speak on it if you'd like me to.
Yeah, if there's nothing you want, that's fine. Let's move on to a question actually that our organizers put together that closely relates to an audience question. The social contract with our citizens is under attack by the GOP-led Congress with reductions in food stamps, welfare, and disability restrictions and proposals to make significant changes as well in the Social Security program. One of our audience member wants to know specifically, what are you going to do to address these poverty issues in the 1st Congressional District? Cathey.
Oh, okay. Thank you. The social contract that we have is incredibly important, and we need to do everything we can to protect it. Attacks on food stamps, attacks on Social Security and Medicare are simply attacks on the poor. It's another attempt to divide and conquer and to demonize people that have been working hard and playing fair and just trying to get ahead. I believe that we need a $15 minimum wage, a living wage. I have 2 kids. They're both here. They are both, there's one back there and there's one over there. And they are both college educated. And when they graduated, they were making under $15 an hour. And here we have these kids that are trying to make it. They're doing all the right things. They went to school, they did a great job, they found jobs, and the jobs didn't pay enough for them to be able to make ends meet. That is ridiculous in this country. It is in our best interest to make sure that people are earning at least a living wage of $15 an hour, because I know a few things that didn't happen. My son didn't buy a car, right, that he could have bought. My daughter didn't go out to eat as often, and so we are ruining ourselves, we are hurting ourselves if we do not have a $15 an hour minimum wage. This state actually had 1 in 4 people in this state is working poor. In other words, they're earning a wage that is below poverty level. So even just looking at this stage, that means you and me and you, and you're the 4th one that is not making a living wage. That is unconscionable.
Talking about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, nobody has done more in the history of this country to get rid of that than Paul Ryan. And we see that the guy that's going to follow him is going to be more of the same. He's come out and he said, whoever follows me, I want them to continue my policies. That's why I'm running. We're not going to have that happen. You know, the way that they would have it right now, and I likened it when Scott Walker was elected governor, is that saying that these Republicans aren't going to be done until we're all living with dirt floors. They're taking it even further. They want us to work until we drop dead. We need to do things like protect pensions. For people that don't have pensions, we need to make sure that our social safety net is intact to catch them when they need it. That includes Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We hear talk that we can't afford it. Well, then again, we know where $1.5 trillion just went. And to hear all this talk coming from the other side of the aisle saying, that's just socialism. Well, let me ask you, if you have a problem with socialism for everyday working people, why don't you have a problem with corporate socialism? We can make the corporations pay their fair share. They benefit from our sweat, from our blood. Pay your fair share so we don't have to work until we drop dead.
Next question, somewhat related. Governor Scott Walker, President Donald Trump, Republicans in Wisconsin recently broke ground on the new Foxconn project here in southeastern Wisconsin. I think President Trump called it the 8th wonder of the world. what are your thoughts on the Foxconn incentive package and its impact on the 1st Congressional District? Dirk.
It was kind of funny how this project got started. The state budget was already 2 weeks behind, and Governor Walker, after the trip to the White House where Donald Trump was touting it as something taking place in Paul Ryan's backyard after he just had some competition for the race, saying this is something that's going to happen in Paul Ryan's backyard. Gets back here, Governor Walker puts it in front of the state budget that was 2 weeks behind, and we're going to jam this through. Looking at all the amendments that were put forth on a partisan basis, I noticed things that the Republicans have removed, things that would have made it guaranteed that Wisconsin people are going to benefit from this. Things like prevailing wage, project labor agreements. These are ways that the building trades were able to make sure that local people, the people that are paying for this project, were able to benefit. They removed that. In some cases, they made it illegal to take place. When I think of $4.5 billion, I think of one of the first things Governor Walker did. That was taking away nearly $1 billion away from public education funds, giving it to the vulture school system. That directly affected my son's ability to learn. So when I see four and a half times that amount of money being used, and we're talking about removing protections from our water, they want to use millions of gallons of water from Lake Michigan. There's already talk about the state of Illinois suing us because of the quality of air. It tells me this money is probably being misplaced, and we need to make sure that the people of Wisconsin get their money's worth. When we're talking that we can't afford to fix our own roads, that Governor Walker has stretched the timeline of those projects out, which is going to delay on our infrastructure. But yet we can afford to widen the lanes for Foxconn from Mitchell Airport to the Foxconn facility. That tells me that their priorities are jacked up. We need to change this corporate socialism to make sure that we get our money's worth. This is about us. It's about our future.
Thank you. I did my homework on the Foxconn deal early on, and I opposed it early on for a variety of reasons. I note that my primary opponent was silent on this issue for a very long time until, frankly, it was a done deal. We posted very early on that we were against it, and we were against it for a number of reasons. One of the first reasons is that $4.5 billion corporate giveaway. That means that we are taking money away from education, that we are not supporting our kids, that we are not developing our infrastructure. Additionally, I was concerned about the environmental impact of this project. They were able to bypass an environmental impact study on this project, and they were able to exempt themselves from DNR rules that prohibit construction in wetlands. And not only that, the proposal from Foxconn said things like, and it looked good at the very beginning, I'll give you that they would, that the jobs would pay between the low-end jobs would pay between $23 and $26 an hour. But if you look at the postings that they have put to fill those jobs, the low-end jobs now are rated at about $11 to $12 an hour. The entire deal is smoke and mirrors, and it's going to cost us a fortune. We're going to be paying for it for a long time. I already told you that 1 in 4 people in Wisconsin are operating on wages that are below the poverty level. This is only going to add to it. It is corporate welfare, and it does not help workers at all. I'd also note that my primary opponent supported the Bucks Stadium in Milwaukee, and that was another $200 million investment that is saddled, the taxpayers are saddled with.
Unless you want to follow up?
Yes, when it came to the Bucks Arena, the only reason that I did support it was because there was talks with the end user jobs that were going to be paid a livable wage, which has since come to fruition. I just attended a meeting last week. It's called MATCH, Milwaukee Area Service Hospitality Workers. Everybody's going to be making $50 an hour. So if you're going to be a responsible employer and pay your workers a livable wage, I'm going to be on board with that.
Next question has to do with the environment. Environmental protection under the Trump administration is being negatively affected with rollbacks of clean air and water protections, giveaways to the fossil fuel industry, and so many other issues. What is the role of Congress in protecting the environment? Cathey, we start with you.
Thank you. Environmental protection is incredibly important to me. I have been a member of Citizens Climate Lobby for several years. I've actually gone and paid my way to go to Congress to lobby it on behalf of environmental solutions. Congress needs to establish more oversight of the EPA and stop the rollback of regulations that are harming us, harming our air and our water. This is the legacy that we give to our kids, and we need to protect it. I note that, you mentioned that Illinois is suing Wisconsin, which is kind of an interesting turnaround over the quality of air and water. It's usually the other way around. But we need to make sure that we protect those things. I have an environmental plan that we have proposed that is on the table back there in the lobby that I would recommend that you look at. It calls for an investment in clean energy jobs like a stimulus, which would result not only in great paying jobs, but a clean environment. I listed several of the things that I think that we need to be investing in, and certainly things like that $1.5 trillion that we were able to give to corporations could be redirected to something like this. So I think that Congress has a duty to look toward the next sector, to invest in clean energy jobs, and to provide more oversight to the EPA.
We need to get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is our dependence on fossil fuels. That's why I've called for a 100% dependency on renewable energies by the year 2035. It's also one of the reasons why very early on in our campaign, I made the statement that we're not going to accept any money from the fossil fuel industry. I live 5 miles away from the Oak Creek Power Plant, and we're seeing pictures of people going out on slides and wiping off slides with coal dust. People are breathing that. They're not even monitoring the air properly. What we need to do is, I've also been on board talking with the building trades. Look, let's get away from putting pipelines in. Let's take out the ones that are not being used. You want to talk about jobs? Prove it to me. Let's get those pipelines out, return the land to where it was, and let's take over these renewable sources of energy, wind turbines, solar panels, because if we don't do it, somebody else will.
Here's a question from the audience. Do you pledge not to accept donations from the NRA, big tobacco, oil companies, or other special interest groups that might incline you to compromise the best interests of your constituency? All right, I think Randy's first.
Absolutely. We've said we're not taking any money from the fossil fuel industry, from Wall Street, from the NRA, from corporate PACs. And somebody did donate from the private prison industry. I think it was like $15. That was flagged and we returned it right away.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, people have seen where we stand. And I think we need to make strong stances as candidates where we want to get our help from. Because people don't give this money to you out of the goodness of their heart. They want something in return. That's why we said, look, I'm going to work to get rid of your industry. Once I get elected, we're going to move to ways that are going to help people. Good paying jobs that are good for our environment, good for our kids, and make us better overall.
The answer is yes. That I will not take money from big tobacco, the NRA, fossil fuels, and all those other bad players. As a matter of fact, my campaign has raised $1.1 million, all on individual contributions, and the average contribution has been $25. And we have not accepted a dime of PAC money, by the way. Your finance report suggests otherwise as far as corporate PACs is concerned. Now, I know that directly you haven't accepted money from corporate PACs, but the PACs that you've accepted money from have been funded by corporate PACs. One of those happens to be General Dynamics, which is a defense contractor which has been profiting by the separation of families at the border. And I'm just wondering if you think you might be willing to return that money.
1 minute.
I have not seen any finance report that shows we've gotten money from General Dynamics.
We will move on to a somewhat related question. It has to do with NRA. Tragedies such as Parkland, Santa Fe, Las Vegas, and many others call attention to sensible gun safety laws, yet Congress and the Trump administration have not done anything. What is your view on gun safety and the role of the NRA, and what will you do if elected to Congress to enact legislation to reduce the number of gun deaths in this country? Cathey, you start.
Thank you. Gun reform is incredibly personal to me. I am a high school English teacher. I have been through the active shooter drills. I have seen what happens to my students when we have to go to lockdown because of a threat. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days after the Parkland shooting, it was near the end of the day, it was just before 3 o'clock, and all of a sudden the fire alarm went off. And you all probably know what that means. None of us in the building moved. We did not evacuate our students because all we could think about was that we may be setting our students up to be targets. We all waited and listened until we were sure that it was clear, at least to go into the hallway. And then as we were evacuating and going down the street to our rendezvous point, it was still all we could think about, that we might be setting our kids up to be assaulted. You have a right to go to school in this country and not be shot. A right to walk down the street, a right to go to church, a right to go to the mall, a right to go to a concert. And we have a gun plan that is back there on our table as well that we have worked out. And by the way, the gun reforms that we suggest are popular, not only with the majority of Americans, but with the majority of gun owners who want some responsible solutions. We believe in universal background checks being truly universal, banning military-style assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and making sure that the offenders of domestic violence cannot get their hands on a gun. Someone who will stand up to the NRA and call this situation for what it is. This is not a Second Amendment issue at all. This is about money. This is about being able to sell guns.
We're seeing our future stand up and say enough is enough. We're seeing high school students walk out of classrooms and march all across this country demanding that we as adults take care of our youth. It's not just taking care of our youth, they're our future. And that's why I'm glad to help them, help make them inclusive with events that we've had, whether it's fundraisers at several county parties. We've gotten a table and invited them to sit with us because they're going to get involved. Many of them are days, weeks, months away from being able to cast a vote. And how telling is it for all kinds of local and federal electeds already to say, have a group of kids say, look, we're backing away from the NRA. I'm a gun owner myself, and I understand Wisconsin's hunter tradition. On a job site, I get along with these hunters because right around Thanksgiving, they all take off of work. I get to soak up all the overtime hours. Then they go hunting, they come back, and I'll eat their venison. Majority of gun owners are responsible, and they understand the need for common sense gun reform. Most of them. The ones that I know have no need for more than 1 or 2 rounds in their chamber. 30-round magazine, laughable. These things called bump stocks, all they're done, the only purpose for them is to get around laws in order to make a semi-automatic weapon into a fully automatic weapon. The first thing I was taught when I was in the Army about the M16, they showed us the round. That round is designed to tumble as it comes out of the barrel, so when it hits you, it bounces around. The people that I know that hunt wouldn't think about using that round. So what we have to do, I have a 11-year-old son too. I refuse to get him a bulletproof backpack. He needs to go to school to learn about studying, and I'll get on him for that. And he will do his homework, but he's not going to carry it back to school with a bulletproof backpack.
I'm going to follow up. So you were saying, so what we have to do, Randy, what do we have to do?
Common sense gun reform, and these are things that majority of people, both sides of the aisle, say let's have background checks. Make sure that people with a violent history, whether it's domestic abuse or any kind of violent history, aren't able to pick up a firearm. Close the loophole at the gun shows. Get rid of high-capacity magazines. Totally ban assault-style weapons, because then we can start talking about demilitarizing our police force as well.
And don't arm teachers.
We have two questions from the audience, maybe more, on the same topic, so I'll present this. The military budget and overseas conflicts are eating up the federal budget and comprise more than 50% of discretionary spending. What do you propose to do to reduce this spending and reallocate to domestic priorities? And someone just wanted to know, what is your position on military spending? Cathey, I think you're first.
Okay. Well, our military budget is bloated. And it is, it seems to me that it's almost like we're out looking for conflicts sometimes to get involved in. I'd say that one of the things that threatens us, one of the most important issues that threatens us militarily and is a foreign threat that we don't often think of is climate change. Because climate change results in things like refugees, droughts. It results in conflicts that we are sucked into as well. We need to do everything we can. We need to rejoin the Paris Accord. The fact that we pulled out of it was one of the many reasons I got into this race in the first place. And we need to be doing everything we can to reduce our carbon footprint and make sure that we are not affecting areas that are vulnerable even more, which will result in those kinds of situations that I just mentioned, and also will result in our involvement. Beyond that, we need to get out of Syria and get out of Iraq as quickly as we can.
If you look at our military budget on a pie chart, it's pretty unbelievable how much money we spend on our military while hungry kids go to bed every night. And it's just not right. Our military, we spend more on our military than like the next 7 or 8 countries combined. Something's wrong. And I often hear that the result of our actions in other countries, whether it's bombings or other attacks, we're creating terrorists faster than we can kill them. I was talking with Congresswoman Barbara Lee just within the last couple of weeks about Paul Ryan pulling her amendment away. In the middle of the night, Paul Ryan pulled an amendment that basically would have cut Donald Trump's ability to have a blank check to wage war. Not only is it a bad time right now to be spending so much on our military hardware, but look at who's in charge of it. Look at the possibilities. We have a government that isn't using the checks and balances that it was based upon, that we were built upon. I've called Paul Ryan Speaker of the White House because of his inability to stand up to Donald Trump. The only time he will is when the donor base is under attack. What we need to do, and I give Donald Trump some credit for going over to North Korea to try to talk them into an agreement, but then scratching my head too, because didn't he just rip up an agreement with Iran that kept them from getting nukes? And he wants to do the same thing with North Korea? I'd say we definitely have a credibility issue. And we could gain a lot more credibility if we would use our money, divert it from making bombs that's going to blow things up. Let's start helping people feed their kids. Let's start helping other countries build schools, have clean water with wells. Our priorities are messed up, and by having a military budget that big, that says that we need to work on making more friends.
Another question from the audience. With the rising costs of higher education and the rise of college graduates starting their adult lives with extreme debt, what is your plan to help young adults achieve the dream of higher education without also achieving crippling debt? And Randy starts.
Well, I think we need to start at the beginning and allow early education for our youngest kids, and especially in communities of color. Because right now, I mean, I know how much it costs for just having daycare. Let's start them early. And then, when they move into grade school, instead of giving out, corporate welfare to entities like Foxconn, let's pay our teachers what they're worth. Because as a society, how can we drop our kids off, our most prized possessions, in front of a school, go in there, and then blame the teacher when we don't give them enough money to buy school supplies, to buy paper, to buy crayons that teachers have to take out of their own money? Then we can make sure that they have free college and public universities, 2-year, 4-year programs. In addition, student loan debt right now, that's one issue on both sides of the aisle that you're seeing people agree on. That look, it doesn't make any kind of sense to be able to discharge everything else in bankruptcy with the exception of a college loan. It's an economic issue as well, because when somebody gets a job after graduating from college, the first job they take, they're going to have to stay with it in order to keep up on their college loans. That's not right. Think of all the money that's being kept out of our economy that could be used to create more of a demand that would create more jobs. If we don't value education, we're going to be falling behind in the global economy, because the best shot we have at winning this and making trade fair is to have the best educated workforce on the planet.
So I have some experience with this. Because I took out student loans, obviously, for college a couple of times, and I also have 2 children who had significant student loans that they had to deal with when they got out of college, and have struggled to pay those loans back, and have been working really hard to do that. Do you know that you used to be able to go to work during the summer? I don't know if anybody remembers this. You'd go to work during the summer, and you'd work and you'd save up your money, and you could save enough money to pay your tuition for the rest of the year, and maybe even pay your rent. Is there anybody out there that remembers that? Okay, good. I'm not just making that up. That started to end actually just as I started college in 1980. And I had to take out loans that took me a long time to pay them back. But I did, and now I'm paying back actually Parent Plus loans that I used to help put my kids through college. I agree that we need to make sure that we pay for public university, make that free, that we include community college and tech schools, because people shouldn't have to just go to college. We should have a variety of means and places for people to pursue an education and follow their passions. We need to be able to let people restructure debt, and yes, discharge the debt in bankruptcy if they need to. We need programs for loan forgiveness for people that go into areas and work in places of need. And we also need to increase Pell Grants. It's not nearly enough to help students meet the obligation of going to school.
Randy, since you brought up fair trade, this seems an appropriate time to ask this question. Speaking of fair trade, is the Trump administration on the right or wrong track when it comes to imposing tariffs on trading partners, and why?
Well, it's not a problem with tariffs that I have. It's a problem with Donald Trump that I have when it comes to talking about tariffs. He tried this the first time, and originally it was like a shoot from the hip type deal when Conor Lamb was running and he was trying to impress everybody, and there was coal country or let's keep American jobs here. And by the way, how did that carrier plant work out where they ended up sending jobs away anyways? But right away he included everybody within these tariffs. A day later he said, well, wait a minute, except for Mexico and Canada, because we trade a lot with them. A week later he removed Australia from the tariffs because we like some things we get from them. Where did that go? Well, it seems as soon as something happened in China that he or his company was able to make some money off, I didn't hear anything about them tariffs. So now more recently again, he came out and it's against everyone. The problem isn't the tariff. And I agree with him, this is the only place I agree with Donald Trump that we need to keep American jobs in the United States. He's not going about it the right way though. When you're alienating our trading partners that have had our backs for decades, we need to work with them, not against them. We need to take care of our friends and not make more enemies, which is what he's doing. When you're looking at right now, we're seeing farmers that are going to suffer as a result in Wisconsin of this. You're seeing Harley Davidson being under attack, which is, that's an American tradition, and it's a cornerstone of the Wisconsin economy. I was grateful to work on the Harley Davidson Museum. And now thinking as far as museum, is that last job going to be a part of the museum someday? We need a president that has a long-term, intelligent, thought-out plan to do this. Donald Trump is not that person. I don't have confidence in him. But I will work with anybody to make sure that American jobs stay here.
Well, I would agree that Donald Trump is the problem here. He likes to talk about himself as a businessman. I regard him as a bully. He's not a negotiator. He doesn't have a strategy. He just does what he wants. He wakes up and on a whim and he says things like, "Oh, I'm going to impose tariffs today on all of our friends." So there is no strategy here. Now, I would agree that we need to use tariffs on occasion. They can be leverage. We can, if you look at our dealings with China over the last 20 years, you'll see this, you'll see what I mean. 20 or so years ago, we gave protected trade status to China. And we made it permanent. And that is the point at which China started dumping steel in this country and taking away jobs and ruining the steel industry here. I believe that we need to go back to analyzing that on a yearly basis, withdraw that protected trade status, and go back to the way it used to be, where we examined it on a yearly basis, and so that we have leverage, that if we need to impose tariffs on China, we can. It is absolutely ridiculous that we are imposing tariffs on our friends and our allies. And the farmers in Wisconsin are paying the penalty for that. Small business people in Wisconsin are paying the penalty for that. We are targets because of Paul Ryan. It'd be great if he would resign and take the target off of our back, but we know that's not going to happen. He's going to work it out and stay until his last breath in November. We also need to examine the trade deals that we have made in the last 20 years, like NAFTA. We need to make sure that they are mutually beneficial between us and our allies, the people that we have made these deals with. That means that we need to not just bring corporations to the table to discuss it. We need to bring all the players, make sure that wages are comparable, that working conditions are comparable, environmental issues are dealt with. Thank you.
Another audience question. What is your position on Planned Parenthood? I'll add the federal funding of Planned Parenthood. Cathey.
Oh, we need to keep the funding for Planned Parenthood. And the Supreme Court situation that we are facing right now brings that issue front and center even more. Because with the Supreme Court, the changes that we've had, and the bringing on Gorsuch, and of course this new pick that we're going to have here, our freedoms are going to be under attack. And one of the freedoms that will be under attack is the freedom as a woman to have probably the most personal conversation that you can have with your doctor. Planned Parenthood is a treasure. Planned Parenthood has saved so many lives. It saved the lives of a lot of people in this room, I betcha. And we need to make sure that it is well-funded and supported. It is an attack on women to attack Planned Parenthood.
Randy.
I'm very much in favor of supporting full funding for Planned Parenthood. People don't always understand this when we talk about it. People are like, well, I'm against abortions. Well, then you want more Planned Parenthood. The best way to stop an abortion is by providing birth control, which is one of the things that Planned Parenthood does better than anybody else. Not only that, but I'd love to see some clinics more in areas like this, more rural areas where there aren't access to clinics that people can go to for medical help. And another thing too that people often aren't aware of is the fact they're like, well, I don't want my tax money going to fund abortions. Well, tax money is not used for funding abortions. It's used for health. So with a healthy education plan to make sure that people know what it's all about, and just to see more clinics, especially at a time when healthcare is so inaccessible for so many of us. A place like Planned Parenthood is a great place to go to be able to visit when you need it.
Yeah.
Fully in favor of
All right, the next question. How should Congress handle the current president's desire to no longer participate in the Paris Climate Agreement? Randy's first.
But like so much of what Donald Trump does these days, I have no explanation for what he's doing. But one time we were one of only 3 countries that got out of it. And what is he thinking? It was Nicaragua. I'm trying to think of the other country. But then they got back in, so we were the one that's staying out of it. It makes no sense to me, especially on a global stage, where as a leader, I'd like to see us leading the rest of the world, because we have that capability. But not leading away from common sense, which is what Donald Trump has been doing. It's ridiculous where he's going, and that would be my position on that.
I think Donald Trump got out of the Paris Accord just to do it. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It was an agreement, and I'm really very happy to learn that there are a lot of cities and states, communities that went ahead with their plans to live up to the standards of the Accord. I think it is, I just don't understand why you would pull out of it, except that you want to just make sure that you do something that, and reverse something that Obama did. And that is no way to live. So I've talked a couple of times about how important the environment is to me. I have been a strong environmentalist for a long time. I have gone to lobby Congress on environmental solutions and climate solutions. And I have proposed the plan that I mentioned before that takes us off of fossil fuels by 2035. It's aggressive, and I've even been told by some people that are with me on, making sure that we have strong climate solutions. That they say, whoa, wait a minute, slow down. That is too much, too fast. But we are at a tipping point. I go to the Midwest Regional Energy Fair every year, and I listen to, I learn about new technology, and I listen to I remember 10 years ago listening to Bill McKibben at the Energy Fair talking about how we have already overextended ourselves, that we must do something now. And that was probably 10 years ago. And so the pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord is just another thing that tells you how important this election is, because we need to make sure we replace Paul Ryan with someone that will stand up to Donald Trump.
what has your stance been on tar sands pipelines historically? Where do you stand on them today, Cathey?
Thank you. I have always been, that's a nice related question, because I've always been against the tar sand pipelines that course through Wisconsin here. They use eminent domain to take land away, to take, bountiful farmland away in order to expand. The tar sands pipeline company, the tar sands pipelines are run by the Enbridge Pipeline Company. They have a history. If you don't know it, you should Google it. But they are responsible for the spill in Kalamazoo that poisoned the river up there and has been almost impossible to clean up. They are still paying for it. And so I regard that as a bad policy, expanding. It just expands our dependence on fossil fuels and also puts us at risk because of their potential to leak. My primary opponent supported pipelines. He has viewed it as a jobs issue. I would agree with you that it is a jobs issue, and jobs are important. I'm glad that you're fighting for jobs. I'm fighting for jobs too. But I think that we need to invest in clean energy jobs. That tar sands pipeline is going to be bigger than the Keystone pipeline when it's done. And they are sneaking it, they're putting it through under the radar, and we need to fight back.
First of all, let me just clear the record that I have not been an advocate for tar sands pipelines. Just because I belong to the building trades, and some unions of the building trades do that kind of work. Had some discussions with the laborers union before their endorsement. They're like, well, where can we come to an agreement? I was like, well, I'm not going to be in favor of new pipelines going in. And I'll recall when I go to the building trades legislative conference every year in Washington, D.C. And I remember when they were first starting to build the facility in Canada that was going to dredge all these things up. And they're talking, this is the best thing ever. When you see the slick brochures, and I'm like, wait a minute, why are you catching us? You don't have a special session to talk about it, but you're coming out of your zone to try to sell this to us. There's some kind of importance here. After looking into it, it's a very dirty form of fuel. And there was an ironworker brother that was working in Canada at the facility, and he's like, Randy, you should come up here. They'll fly you up here, you'll make over $100,000 a year. I was like, you know what? That ain't my kind of job. I'll stay down here in the cold and make what I can, but I don't feel comfortable doing that kind of work. And as far as some other pipelines, like the Dakota Access pipelines, when talking with members of the building trade, I make it a point to explain to them, what do you value so much about being in your union? And it always comes back, well, our collectively bargained contract, of course. I was like, how can you tell me you value your contract, but you're going to totally disregard a Native American treaty? That, to me, is a sacred contract. We'll agree that you can maintain them to provide some hours so that they don't leak. And once elected in Washington, D.C., if you need help welding it, I'll come back and I'll throw my hood on and we'll fix it. But that's not the way we need to go.
Another question from the audience. Do you believe Donald Trump has committed actions which would merit his impeachment? Would you vote to impeach Donald Trump? Randy's first.
Well, if you compare what Donald Trump has done to what Bill Clinton did when he faced impeachment, I would say a little more pressing issue right now. The thing is if we had a Congress that stood up as part of the checks and balance, this wouldn't even be an issue. That's why we need to take control of the midterms this year, take back the majority so we can put a stop to what Donald Trump did. And I would say impeachment is definitely not off the table.
Cathey?
Thank you. My answer is yes. We actually looked into this issue on our campaign back in last fall. We had a town hall on whether or not Donald Trump had violated the emoluments clause of the Constitution. And the emoluments clause is about whether or not an elected official or the president has been enriched or benefited from some foreign country or entity. And Donald Trump did not divest of from his business. And his business is, of course, prospering because of all the foreign countries that are doing business with him. So we felt at that time that, yeah, we think there's a case to be made for impeaching Donald Trump based on the emoluments clause. I also believe that there's a case to be made, and it seems to be looking that way, that there's a case to be made on obstruction of justice. I want to wait. I'm being patiently waiting for the Mueller probe to come out, but it seems the longer we go that is entirely a possibility. One thing I think this is all about is that character counts. We need to make sure that we are electing honest people who will serve their country and not use their office to simply enrich themselves or to improve their status or really care about service. And so character counts, we need to think about that the next time we go to the polling place.
We only have time for one more question before closing statements, and I think I'm going to ask to abbreviate your answers to 1 minute rather than 2. How do you win moderates? You both have progressive platforms, yet this area is consistently center or center-right. Randy.
It's about lifting working people up. That's what it's about. That's what government should be. It should be about lifting each other up, helping lift each other up. The other side likes to step on each other to get to the highest point. I'm in favor of policies that are going to help working people. I understand what it's like to struggle. And we need more people that understand the struggle. Because what we're going through here in Wisconsin in the first CD is a lot harder than anything going on in Washington, D.C.
Well, actually, this is our approach to our campaign, I think, satisfies our answer here. This is about making sure that we go out and talk with people, that we listen to them, that they feel heard. Our campaign has been a totally grassroots campaign. We are out knocking doors and having conversations with people. We are present in our district. I have made personally over 30,000 phone calls, and among those people, I've called locally elected officials to talk with them about what's going on in their community. By the way, I've ran into a lot of Republicans when I did that, and we've had great conversations. And I'm talking about the need for things like listening sessions once I'm elected, not the PowerPoint presentations that Paul Ryan was known for. I'm talking about let's just go out and have coffee and be present in your community and be a member of the community. As I believe in the idea of the citizen legislator. I think we need to bring that back. And that's how we're going to
From both candidates, and Randy starts.
Thank you. I got into this race for one reason, to repeal and replace Paul Ryan. Today I'm proud to say thanks to our campaign and your support, we've achieved half that goal. But the job isn't finished yet. Because while Paul Ryan may not be on the ballot in November, his anti-worker agenda will be. The likely Republican nominee is a Paul Ryan clone who's been groomed to replace him. He's outsourced jobs, supported the Republican tax scam, and helped Paul Ryan craft policies that would gut Medicare and Social Security. As Paul Ryan said in his endorsement, he knows what he's doing. That's exactly what I'm worried about. In this election, the voters of southeastern Wisconsin have a choice. We can elect another politician who values corporate profits over workers' rights, who supports tax breaks for the rich, but not a fair living wage. and who will continue Paul Ryan's attacks on our retirement and health care. Or we can elect someone who understands the challenges that working people face, someone who's actually lived them. Our fight is far from over. So if you believe that healthcare should be a right, that our kids deserve better, safer schools and access to affordable higher education, and everyone who is willing to work hard deserves the dignity of a steady, good-paying job, then I'm asking for your support. Together we repealed Paul Ryan. In November, we can finally replace him and give Wisconsin's working people the representation they deserve. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to seeing you on the campaign.
All right, let's finish off here. Cathey, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you, and thank you, Joy, for moderating. Thank you, Walworth Dems, for putting this on, and thank you, Randy, for joining me here. This is wonderful, and I really appreciate this opportunity. So I open by telling you just how incredibly important this election is. And I know we've always made the case that elections are always important, and that is absolutely true. But this election, we are on the precipice here. We need to turn things around, and it has to happen this election. This is our best opportunity to turn over that seat that we've had in 20 years. We need to elect someone who can not only win, but can serve, and I'm that candidate. I have a history of serving my community, as I have mentioned before, and I understand what it means to be a working person. I have worked my tail off since 1972. I got my first job at 10 years old working in my family's truck stop. I did everything from pick up trash to clean the bathrooms on Sunday morning, which is, well, I don't want to go into that, because that was really something. But I've learned the value of work. I've learned the value of work and to protect working people as a union leader in my school. I have fought for better wages and benefits and working conditions. I know what it's like as a teacher to make ends meet, but I've also listened to my students and seen what they have gone through and worked with them and their families, especially during the recession. And I know what it means to make ends meet as a single mom. I have supported my kids. I have worked hard, and even when my ex-husband fell behind on his child support, I took on an extra job to make ends meet. I want to fight for health care and education, wages, and the environment, and I humbly ask for your vote on August 14th. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates, Cathey Myers and Randy Bryce, who joined us for the debate. Thank you to the Walworth County Democratic Party for organizing it, and thanks to everyone here who came in person or is listening to the radio or watching online. Primary is August 14th. I hope that this helped you make up your mind. Go vote. Good night. I want to make an announcement. I'm Secretary of the Walworth County Dem.